Veterans in Transition is sponsored by HireVeteransFirst.com, Jelani Consulting, and Village Connector Community.
Welcome to Veterans in Transition, where we promote the veteran community. Each week we travel around the region highlighting veteran-related news, issues, and events. In this episode, we'll learn the importance of a federal schedule as a vehicle option for government contracts. In her own words, we'll hear from the first African-American woman to command an installation. Celebrating 40 years of achievement and camaraderie, we'll hear from a few United States Naval Academy grads from the class of 1977. She's a 9/11 survivor who assisted others to safety. As a consultant, she works to strengthen foundations who support military families. Retired Colonel Mary Lou Mayhew in this week's Vets Talk.
I'm lucky to follow such great speakers tonight. You know, a little bit about my career myself. You heard that 37 years of service. When I went into the military, it was a little different than it is now. And I think one of the greatest things I've been able to see from the time I came into the service where women were really, they weren't sure how to deal with us in the Army. They didn't quite know where they fit in because we had gone from an all-volunteer force in a conscripted service, and when we went to this all-volunteer force, all of a sudden, they needed women, they needed us, and we do good things. But it was very interesting to see that transition where you could only hold a few jobs to finally, when I'm ready to retire, all the positions are open to women. That's a big accomplishment. Everything is open for all my sisters that follow behind me. And I know the other two ladies that were here, you know it was a little challenge out there. But a couple of things that the Army has taught me. Number one, you can get through anything. Your faith, your friends, and your family are always going to be there for you no matter what. And they will be the core that helps you get through all those challenging things in life. Second, there's going to be obstacles out there. No matter what you do or where you are in life, there's going to be obstacles. And you have to find a way of getting around them, through them, over or under them. That's why I'm a good runner. One of the events I run is a steeplechase, and people ask me, well, why do you like running it? I said, you know, I have Army training. I can get through anything. So I think you have to remember that your training in the Army will help you get through anything. I've had an amazing career. When I went in, as I said, it was not a time when women were always getting all the positions, but I decided I was going to set the example. I was going to prove people wrong that women could do some of those positions. When I went to take my company command, I knew that they had never had a female commander before, that the commanders before me probably weren't the greatest commanders, but I said, you know what? One of my best skills, I can run. I know I can beat almost any guy out there. So I said, I'm going to do a PT test with them my very first day, and we did. And I think all but 3 of other people in my unit beat me. And they were about dying, they were wheezing and coughing and about ready to throw up at the end of the 2-mile run. I asked them if they were ready to run again. I was ready to go. But I set the stage for success because I proved to them that I was not afraid of hard work, I was not afraid of a challenge, and I was going to go and put myself out there and lead them. And they respected that. They also respected the fact that I stood up for them when things weren't always good. When we were at one of our training exercises, we were running into some issues, and they were all watching me as I go over and I throw my helmet down on our commander's Jeep and start yelling at him about some things that were going on that shouldn't have been going on. And I grab my helmet and walk away, and they were all just watching me. But I was willing to stand up for them to make sure that things were fixed and to do what was right. And that's an important thing to remember anytime in your career. It's about doing what's right. There were some times in my career where people were trying to undermine me and do things behind my back, or they didn't like me, but I always did what was right. And by doing what's right, making sure you know what's right, you will always win in the end. And sometimes people don't like change. And when you're trying to push people to do their jobs, they don't always like that. But I pushed people hard, made them do their jobs, held them accountable, and always did what was right. And I took care of my people in the end. My career's been kind of a squiggly line. After having the field time, everything else, I ended up working in Headquarters Army, being an Inspector General, and then going on to Office Secretary of Defense, where I really had some great opportunities to change the organization. And I think those are some of the accomplishments I am most proud about in my career, are the ability to transform organizations. Now, when I retired, I had to kind of think about what I wanted to do, okay? And so my advice to people that are transitioning, think about what you like to do. What about your career made you want to get up every day and say, this is fun, I enjoy this? I like changing stuff. I like finding where the friction points are between policy and execution. We have this big idea up here, why isn't it working down here? How can we make things better? I really enjoyed doing that. And so actually today I just accepted a position with MITRE, and they're a federally funded research and development corporation, and I'm going to be in their government and business transformation section so we can go out and fix things. And that's one of the things I've always liked doing. The other point I talked about in the Army, one of the things that it taught us is that it'll teach you to get through the hardest days of your life. And in anybody's career and in your life, you're going to have some really hard days. You're going to lose friends, you're going to lose family. And I think you learn to become resilient. You rely on your faith, your friends, and your family again. I've lost a lot of friends over the time to battles, to war, to 9/11, to helicopter crashes, to IEDs. But I guess the one death I was never very well prepared for was losing my son. About a year ago, I lost him February 13th, the darkest day of my life. And it was to drug addiction. And as I was unraveling the death, we found out that he was suffering a lot from secondary post-traumatic stress. And when I looked back on his life and saw the different events that impacted his life, with the first one in the 3rd grade, a veteran murdering his wife and then killing himself in front of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. My son was in 3rd grade. This gentleman was his basketball coach, and his daughter was in my son's class, and his son was a year ahead of my son. And then 9/11 occurs a few years later. I survive. His teacher, her husband, dies. And then I go away, and I'm deployed, I'm off doing things. These things impact your children. But this is one of the things we never knew, how things were impacting our children. And then, my son, a few years later, had some surgery. And one of the things, as I'm unraveling this, one of his colleagues referred to him as the perfect storm. That individuals who face several incidents of post-traumatic stress are much more likely to become addicted to opiates. So he had no chance. Going in for surgery, back-to-back surgeries, he became addicted. He had no choice. He was the perfect candidate with addiction written over his name for somebody that was going to run into those problems. And the thing that's really sad about this afterwards, he was like me. He was always going out there trying to fix stuff. He recognized he had a problem and was trying to overcome his addiction, but was running into a lot of obstacles with healthcare, not only with my TRICARE initially, but then when he aged out and was in Blue Cross Blue Shield, ran into constant problems. So shortly after his death, his colleagues and coworkers approached me about, we need to do something, because he was very active in the veteran community. He himself never served, but knew how committed I was to the great nation we live in to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And he took that literally, was my biggest advocate, like you said. He was always the one that pushed me to go harder, work harder, jump higher, to change things, to fix stuff. So he was my personal cheerleader. So we needed to figure out a way to change something really terrible and fix that. So the colleagues approached me about starting the foundation, so we started the John P. Mayhew Foundation with 3 main lines of effort, and that was to educate our public and provide better access to resources for people that are in recovery, and to look at the different methods that are out there for treatment options that are non-medical intervention. So the moral of the story is here, bad things are going to happen to us. Our Army training has prepared us to find ways to fix stuff, overcome adversity, and continue to make this country the great nation it is. Thank you.
On behalf of the United States Naval Academy, class of 1977, which holds the largest number of African American males to graduate in a single class, as we celebrate Veterans Day, I want to thank all of those who have served and continue to serve. Thank you for your service.
How important is it, if you're interested in getting a government contract, winning a government contract, to have a schedule as a vehicle option?
We advocate the program because you do want to be able to offer your federal customer an option, a choice. So open market procuring takes months and months and months, especially the larger the opportunity, the more in research and rules and regulations that have to be adhered to by the agencies. When they put that opportunity through a contract vehicle like the GSA schedule, the same opportunity and the time span comes from months to maybe a year down to maybe 2 or 3 months. Again, and I think that's one of the greatest values that the schedule program can bring to a business is getting, one, providing your customer with an option, and two, getting business more readily.
And how important is it to share this information with veterans?
Well, certainly GSA as an agency themselves advocates and does a lot of business with small businesses. They meet their goals and exceed their goals year over year. They put a lot of small businesses and want small businesses on the GSA program. In 2011, I believe it was, they opened up the opportunity for their customer agencies to do small business set-asides, which allows then the customer agencies that they serve to put opportunities specific to small veteran disabled, women-owned businesses, and that was a very strong statement by GSA, opening up the contract vehicles for usage and recognition to small businesses, especially, of course, veteran-owned. GSA works and collaborates with the VA extensively as well in recognizing our veteran industries.
One of the things that I heard you mention was like the disabled veteran as, as an option, as well as women-owned businesses, small business, all those, right? Mm-hmm. How do you guys work in tandem with the other options that are out there? How exactly does that work?
If an agency or an entity came to me and they wanted, for example, to obtain their disabled veteran-owned status, there is a program. They would work directly with the VA. There are businesses out there, I'm sure, that can foster them through those programs as well, because again, with everything, there's application processes, there's validation process. I do know to obtain the veteran disabled element and that criteria for socioeconomic, as with anything. And we could certainly recommend avenues for them to pursue. But I really would like, and my advice to a company is, get those in line first before you pursue a schedule, because you really want to be able to put yourself out there as a small business, which is self-certification. That's easy. But when you get into the veteran disabled, you're going to have to go through certain other steps. It's almost like an 8A program. If you are a disadvantaged socioeconomic entity, then you want that, and that's a program you go through Small Business Administration. And again, with the disabled veterans, you go through the VA.
Now, here's one of the things that we often hear about when it comes to a GSA schedule. Mm-hmm. The first thing is the time constraints. What is the recommendation or the requirement for getting on a schedule if you are starting a business?
I just actually had a conversation with someone from the General Services Administration not 10 minutes ago, from the Office of Small Business Utilization. It's called the OSBU group. Every agency has an OSBU group. So she came over here and we were commenting on the fact that the schedules program still requires an entity to be in business for 2 years, and you have to have past performance. You have to be able to exemplify your expertise in any particular, what your industry is. I always tell my clients, if you did one thing 5 years ago, one time, that doesn't make you an expert. You have to do it continuously and to be able to exemplify you're really a qualified entity to do business with. There is some discussion, and I think for a lot of our small veteran-owned businesses, they just aren't meeting that 2-year stipulation of being in business, and it's something that I know GSA is reconsidering at this time. It'll be time, only time will tell whether they take the requirement out of the contract vehicle, but right now it's still a 2-year in business requirement. You still have to have sound experience and sound financial background.
The sound financial background, what does that look like?
It's a challenge for some of these small veteran-owned businesses, small businesses in general, to be able to qualify on the financial front. But there are ways to look at, to consider, other things to consider. You can work with the Small Business Administration, of course, to get what's called Certificate of Competencies, but all those things have to take time. And if you're willing to put in the time and the energies to fill your applications and fill out those pieces and let them run through the process, then it could pay off quite extensively in the back end.
I'm Natasha Sistrunk Robinson, former captain, United States Marine Corps, and on behalf of myself and all the leaders of Leadership Links, I want to wish all of our veterans a happy Veterans Day.
She was born in Willow Spring, North Carolina. She joined the United States Army to pay for her nursing school education. When she retired in 1993, she was the commanding officer of Fort Belvoir. Here, in her own words, Brigadier General Clara Adams Ender.
Absolutely not. And the reason why, when I came into the Army in 1959, women couldn't be general officers. The first female that made general officer in the Army made it in 1970, Anna Mae Hayes. And I'd been in the Army 11 years by that time, you see. So that it was one of those things that I really envisioned, because I didn't even know we could get to that point. I think that we have come a long way in terms of dealing with opportunities for women in the military, and in terms of women in positions of importance as far as the military is concerned. I think that we have a long way to go, and I would be the first to admit that we have a long way to go. But I also want to admit right up front that we've come somewhere. We've come a long way. But I will tell you, much of it has to do with the persistence, because women, and as I talk to some of these youngsters these days, they will not be denied. You know, they'll do whatever it takes in order for them to get to the places they want to get to. The other part is that there have always been some men who were willing to support us and to be able to put us in positions where we were able to move along. I've had it happen to me, and I'm grateful to those fellas to this point, because without them, I would never have been able to go and do many of the things that I have done. My rise to the stars, how Sharecropper's daughter became an Army general. Well, I'll tell you, it wasn't promised, and it's not promised to anybody. But one of the things that I think was very important with me along the road was I never, ever thought it important to turn down any job. Overcoming obstacles in this world is very, very important. And all of the time, you don't have to go and beat your head against the wall in order to overcome an obstacle. You might have to sometimes decide if you're going to go over, under, around, or through it to get to your goal. But you will get there if you're willing to just be persistent and overcome those obstacles. Because our obstacles are not always set up to stop you, you know. They just want to give you a little bit of backbone so that you can go do what you got to do. Much of what happens to you in this life is not that anybody's trying to do anything that makes you less than what you are or whatever. It's all about how you react and respond to what happens to you. And I've always had a positive attitude that someplace in all of this garbage that I got here in front of me, there must be a pony down there. But I had made sure that I had done those things that was necessary. There was a saying that Chappie James used to always tell, General Chappie James, the first African-American four-star that we had in the military period. He used to always say that he had elementary school teacher that used to always tell them, when the door of opportunity opens, there's no time to go home and pack your bags. You gotta have the bags ready to go when somebody calls your name and say, this is your opportunity. You gotta be ready to go. And I always tried to make sure I was ready to go.
In 1977, 62 African American men graduated from the United States Naval Academy, marking a milestone for diversity at the Academy.
These statistics has yet to be surpassed by any other single class at the United States Naval Academy. We entered the fleet in the wake of racial tensions as enlisted men complained about the underrepresentation of African Americans among the officer ranks. We met up with brothers and soon sisters who had joined the officer ranks through other means such as ROTC, as we know it, or the Officer Candidate School. Oftentimes graduates from HBCUs. The expectation was that we would help bring good order back to the fleet. I think we did. We all accepted the opportunity and responsibilities that came with it. The struggles and the success is what binds us today. Whether you served your required years or developed a career, the impact on the military service and the nation as a whole was and continues to be great. Lieutenant General J. Silveria, Superintendent of the United States Air Force Academy, recently said it best, declaring that the response to a bad situation is to offer a better idea. That better idea stemmed from the power of diversity. The people in this room represent that very power.
My name is Rear Admiral Julius S. Caesar, U.S. Navy, retired. I'm here on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the class of 1977, graduation from U.S. Naval Academy. And one of the unique things that we're doing here today is to celebrate also and tribute the African American Marine Corps and Navy officers who graduated in the class of 1977. 62 of us graduated during that year, and that is a part of diversity at the Naval Academy that hasn't been surpassed since in terms of African American males graduating. I'd like to take this opportunity, though, to thank all the men and women of our armed forces, both Navy, Marine Corps, but also Army, Air Force, and Coast Guard. Thank you for your service, both in the past and in the present as well.
My name is Paul Davis. I'm a retired Navy captain. I'm also managing director of CDP and Associates. One of the most important things that I think we need to do as a nation is to truly appreciate the young men and women that in some cases have given their all, their lives, for the safety, well-being of this nation. Without those individuals, the freedoms that we enjoy, you wouldn't enjoy. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one of them, and I just hope that there's young people that will take their place in the future.
Hello, my name is B.J. Penn. In 1977, we had the largest number of African American midshipmen graduate from the Academy. The young men and women we have here tonight, they've all been in the Navy. They've been very, very successful. They have a fantastic education. We have 4-star admirals, 3 stars, 2 stars, men and women. Astronauts, the Navy is a cross-section of society that allows you to do whatever you want, whatever your capabilities will allow you to do. I would like to thank those that are still with us, that have done so much for our great country. The midshipmen who have gone out and served, led people, combat, peacetime, and those especially that have paid the ultimate price. It's been a wonderful experience, and thank you so very much for your service to God, country, and what you've done.
My father was in the Air Force, and I grew up on Air Force bases, and I thought, well, when you grow up, everybody should be a pilot. I got a chance to apply to the Naval Academy right out of high school, but ended up spending a year at the Naval Academy Prep School. Getting an opportunity to fly the planes that I flew gave me a chance to see the world. one of my hobbies has been learning and documenting naval history and filling in the gaps where African Americans have been missing in naval history. Not only the generals and admirals, but every man and woman who served in the military deserves to have our respect and acknowledgement as we come upon this time of year when we salute all of them during Veterans Day.
That's all for this edition of Veterans in Transition. We ask that you like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. If you have a story to tell, reach out to us at vetsintransition.com. And remember, we all have a story to tell. Until next time.